Welcome back to Son of Chelsea. Daniel Childs here. Team selector time for the return of the Premier League with Chelsea facing Leicester at the King Power on Saturday lunchtime. Great to have football back, and this is one of the more exciting periods of the season, or at least weekends, because now we know there are no international breaks till the new year, till the end of March, I think it is. So really happy with that state of things, and we go into a crucial period of the season. The festive period is always one of those defining moments, I think, in a season where you learn how strong your team is, how flexible they are, how durable they are to the setbacks that come with it, and the intensity that is going to face Enzo Maresca and his Chelsea players over the upcoming weeks. But I think this period actually is a great opportunity for Chelsea. They've had a difficult start. They're third in the Premier League. Now the big challenge between now and the new year is to cement Chelsea's place in the top four. I think they've got an opportunity to do it, and it starts with a good and positive performance tomorrow. So going to give you my predicted 11. We'll talk about the team news, the big team news regarding Chelsea, and some news that broke shortly before recording this. And then we'll look at Leicester, and I'll give you my predicted 11. Please do let me know your thoughts on the game in the comments below. Like, subscribe, follow me on Blue Sky, all that good stuff. Let's jump into it. So obviously the big news of recent days, Reece James injury. I was going to make a separate news show about it. I've just discussed it quite extensively on the Chelsea Echo podcast with Louis. I try hard not to repeat myself. I mean, the newest development is something that doesn't surprise me, because the initial news and the initial quote from Enzo Maresca referred to it as a minor injury. And because of Reece's injury history, I didn't quite believe that it was a minor injury. And today, Matt Law has reported quite recently that now Reece James is going to have a scan on this injury next week, which makes it sound a little bit more serious, and I think kind of cements where Reece James is. And I think that I want to ask you guys in the comments, and I posted this on Blue Sky, and I think it's very difficult as a Chelsea fan, as someone who has a podcast about Chelsea, talks about Chelsea, and has spoken about Reece James getting injured and his injury history and all of that for several years now. Where do we go from here? How do we solve this issue? Because the issue that Reece James has, and the issue that I think we've got, is that I actually have little ire for the way Reece James has been handled this season. He got injured at the end of a pre-season where arguably you can say, oh, he played a little bit too much, but then he has to play some football, he has to get some match fitness, and then he comes back and Maresca is, dogmatic over he's only playing one game a week, and he's not actually playing the most intense role. He's not bombing up and down the flank, which, naturally as a Chelsea fan, we want to see Reece do that, right? We want to see him contribute in the final third, but he's actually played a bit more of a reserved role in recent weeks. He doesn't even start the Arsenal game. He doesn't go on international duty with England, and he still gets injured. So you're left in kind of this position now of Reece James. If this injury is a bit more serious than anticipated, he's already had surgery. They've managed him as carefully as they can. Reece is now pretty much effectively a cameo player. He is someone that can only be used a short period of time. And even if you are doing that, I mean, there's probably still a probability he gets himself injured at some other point. So it's a real tragedy. It's really sad. I feel horrible for Reece, because it feels like his career, a potentially great career, is being robbed. But I struggle to know what the solution is at this point. So obviously Reece will not be available for this game, and we'll see how long this absence is. Let's hope it's only 1 week, but it's hard to know. Positive, Jadon Sancho is back. I think we all anticipated that Jadon Sancho was going to be back, but I think it's huge because he was a guy that came into the Chelsea first team, surprised me, looked really good. I think dropped off a little bit. Can he make his mark and get back into this starting 11? I'm not entirely sure whether Leicester is the game to do it, but I do think this next period for Jadon Sancho is to reassert himself on the left side of Chelsea's attack, because since he's got that injury, since he's maybe dropped off in form, Pedro Neto very much has taken that spot, and the competition is very fierce out wide for Chelsea currently. Let's look at Leicester. So Leicester currently 15th in the Premier League. They've lost 3 of their last 5 under Steve Cooper, who of course replaced Enzo Maresca. Jamie Vardy's still very much providing the goals, top goal scorer in the Premier League for them this year with 4. Ndidi is much more creative midfielder nowadays, 4 assists. In terms of their defensive struggles this year, 1.9 goals conceded per match. They're 19th in the league for XG conceded. that's XG created, 18th for shots on target, 3rd for XG conceded. So they've had a lot of problems. They've had sponsorship issues. There's been fears about points deductions. Obviously, Maresca leaving in the summer was very disruptive, along with Keane and Dewsbury Hall. You know, I could have some sympathy for Leicester fans because they're probably looking at Dewsbury Hall and thinking to themselves, like, why did we have to sell him? You know, he's gone to, it's not like he's even gone to Chelsea and become an integral player. He's become a C player for Chelsea, and we could have done with him. But I think the issue they have is moving from a coach who is very specific about his style of play to someone who maybe isn't as specific, and that transition is a little bit awkward. And also just what we have seen in recent years of the disparity between the Championship and the Premier League maybe not helping. They've lost some key players to injury. Ricardo Pereira's like a Reece, you know, we talk about Reece James and right back injury problems. Pereira has been a kind of an injury prone player for them, and he can be quite integral. They've had some other bad injury news this week. So, I think for Chelsea and for Leicester, Leicester, I think, will be in a relegation battle. Actually, 15th isn't the worst given what they've gone through this season, but it's hard to see them being above that. And as great and as durable and as historic kind of a Premier League player Jamie Vardy has been, I'm not quite sure it's great that they are still relying on him to provide the goals. He still is doing it, but I think for them to sustain themselves as a Premier League team in this kind of new era of Leicester, they need to find new blood, basically, and it's hard to see where that's going to come from. And it's also hard to see if it goes on in this kind of fashion, Steve Cooper lasting the full season, if I'm being honest. Let's then move on finally to my predicted 11. So I think for Chelsea, there's a real opportunity here to be dominant. We've talked already, statistically, the evidence is there that they're a pretty weak defensive team. Because they are playing at home, I suspect they'll be a little bit more rigid. But, Leicester have always historically been pretty poor at set pieces. That defensively, they were always quite horrendous at defending set pieces. Can Chelsea capitalise in that sense? Can we show a bit more of creating better quality opportunities than we have in the past 2 weeks or the past 2 Premier League games against Man United and Arsenal, where it felt like attack-wise we weren't kind of there, like we weren't quite as explosive and dynamic as we had been in recent weeks. So I think that's going to be the big thing in tomorrow's game. Starting in goal, we know Sanchez is starting, and he's probably going to be starting most Premier League games until if he gets injured at all, really, because Jorgensen, as we've discussed several times on the show recently, is not really providing competition. No Reece James, so Malo Gusto will start at right back. I think he really needs to up his form. His individual form this season hasn't been amazing, which we spoke about on my grading video recently. So I really do feel that Gusto now, who is probably likely to be the first choice for some time if Reece James' injury issues are more serious than expected, he really needs to pick up form. Fofana had his best performance of the season against Arsenal. He stays in the team, so does Levi Colwill. And Marco Correa, I thought, had his best performance of the season against Bukayo Saka. So I think that will be the back four. And to be honest, it really has been the first choice one so far this year. Or probably, I bet that's probably the most played for Maresca so far. Midfield, it's a little bit confusing because Lavia, there were concerns about his injury, but Maresca didn't mention him in the press conference. He spoke about Reece, but he didn't speak about Lavia. So I'm going to assume Lavia is at least available or close to available. If that's the case, I think Caicedo will play and I think Lavia will start. Obviously, Enzo Fernandez, are you going to play both Caicedo and Enzo given their late returns? I'm more likely to play Caicedo because I think he's in better form and more important for Chelsea. I guess maybe the argument would be because it's more of a dominant game or game where you expect Chelsea to have a lot of the ball. Maybe you are looking at Enzo Fernandez. But I think he'll stick with the first choice midfield too if both of them are available and ready to go. Because I want to see that midfield pair. And hopefully they can be a bit more dynamic, especially with Lavia. Three-burner striker is where probably a lot of the debate's coming, right? I could see people instinctively wanting a couple of things. And we've spoken about Nkunku. I think Nkunku, his whole role in Chelsea's Premier League team, I think will be one of the big narrative and big talking points of the next period of this season. I've said clearly, I think it's imperative on Maresca to try and make it work because I think Nkunku is such a good and valuable player. I think it'd be foolish of Chelsea to just overlook Christopher Nkunku, basically, and just allow him to become a fringe player who eventually leaves because he's upset. I feel that for this game, though, and for me, Nkunku to start off with, has to be first off the bench. I do not want to see another game where Mykhailo Mudryk and Enzo Fernandez are coming on before Nkunku. I'd even argue Felix should be coming on before both of those players based on recent form. So that's the first thing. But I feel that Noni Madueke had a really good international break. I think will probably just stay in the first team, but I think in terms of players in jeopardy of losing their starting place, I think Madueke is probably closer than others. Cole Palmer, let's hope he can shake off that knock and also start to be productive again. I think this is a great opportunity and great game to do it. Pedro Neto obviously scored the brilliant goal against Arsenal. He's the guy in form really at the moment for Chelsea, or at least has been dominant in recent weeks and getting a lot of plaudits. So I think this is another great chance for him to showcase why he should be remaining in the first team. And Nicholas Jackson, who also went quiet for a few weeks. I think for him, hopefully he can build on what has overall been a very strong start to the season. So that is my team selector. That is my lineup. Let me know your thoughts on the game in the comments below. Follow me across the socials at SonOfChelsea, and I will see you again very soon. All the best.